Hello, everyone. This is a presentation on the power of stories, specifically, the power that stories elicited through the method of narrative inquiry can have on the development and refinement of a survey study questionnaire. The survey study that I want to conduct starts with the research question you see on screen. How do professional classical musicians find and use written, recorded, and live music and other music related information and technology? My idea is that data from this survey will help music librarians better understand the information activities and behaviors of professional classical musicians in order to enhance services and instruction for student musicians preparing for careers in classical music performance. Using a questionnaire instrument for collecting data is useful because you can design the questions so that they measure specific concepts or variables, and then you can analyze the relationships between the variables. For example, here is part of a pilot test that I did on an initial draft of my questionnaire. Question 1 measures what type of musician is filling out the questionnaire. And question 10 measures the value of social media platforms for learning about the classical music world. An analysis of the relationship between these variables would yield information on whether and to what degree different types of musicians find value in different social media platforms. Here are two more questions about technology and media from the pilot test. Question 9 asks about the use of digital tools to prepare music for performance. In other words, how musicians use technology to practice. And question 11 asks specifically about how respondents use YouTube for various information needs. The data that this questionnaire gathers can be used to tell a story about how professional musicians use today's technologies to support their vocation. Another way to say this is that the questionnaire data will describe the behaviors of professional musicians and perhaps even explain them. Describing and explaining are two of the most common purposes of social research. In my design of the questionnaire instrument, I am seeking to measure certain behaviors and relationships that I have decided might yield interesting descriptions and explanations. I think if I were a university music student, for example, I might derive great value from watching scrolling score videos on YouTube. Therefore, I think it would be interesting to describe and explain how professional musicians use the online video sharing website. But I realize that I am not a university music student, nor am I a professional musician. And I've drafted my questionnaire without first exploring these topics in conversations with the community members I wish to study. And of course, one of the most useful purposes of social research is exploration. I have a limited number of questions I can ask on my questionnaire before it becomes too burdensome for respondents to fill out. I might do well then to use a mixed methods approach, which utilizes more open-ended, exploratory narrative inquiry interviews in addition to the descriptive and explanatory questionnaire instrument. As Michael Stevens points out, using a narrative inquiry interview can capture dynamic discourse on a topic as well as major themes and trends and unexpected details and insights. I should probably interview some actual professional musicians and then revise my questionnaire instrument accordingly. For example, I could conduct 30 to 60-minute open-ended interviews, as Stevens and colleagues did, with public librarians in Australia. Their interviews were structured around the prompt you see on screen. I would like to hear about your experiences with professional learning and development in your public library job. You can tell your story in any way you feel comfortable, perhaps beginning with a bit about your background, the work you do, and what you do to keep learning in your job. My adaptation of this prompt would be to ask interviewees to tell me about their experiences using 21st century technology to find music and practice their instruments. I would ask them to tell me about their backgrounds, the music they play, and what they do to continue growing and enriching themselves as musicians. If I conducted, say, 10 such interviews and then analyzed the narratives, I think it would give me highly relevant insight into my topic. By exploring the topic through narrative inquiry, I can hopefully home in on the most interesting and insightful concepts to measure, describe, and explain using a questionnaire instrument that has been refined by the explorations of narrative inquiry. That's all for now. Thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye.